Hi, welcome to the Gentleman's Playbook. I am your host, Rod Warner. I'm here with the Gentleman's Playbook. In this podcast, we're talking about teaching men how mindset, confidence, and actually how to move in certain groups. Today, I have some special guests with me, nothing other than Courtney Hicks, a good friend of mine from college, and also David Paige, a longtime friend. Courtney, welcome. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me, Rod.
What's your occupation?
I'm a pharmaceutical rep.
Okay, how long you been doing that?
I've been doing pharmaceutical sales for 12, 13 years.
Okay, cool. When you hear a gentleman, how do you define a gentleman?
When I think of a gentleman, I think of a clean cut. Doesn't necessarily have to be a brother, just be a young man who has his stuff together. You know, well clean from the top to the bottom, presents themselves very well. One who knows how to handle themselves. You know, one when you look at them once, you need to take a double take from a brother to another brother or man to man.
Cool. When I created my book, The 7 S's, when you first heard about it, learned about it, what came to mind?
I'm going to be very honest with you.
Please.
I was like, what does Rod got going on? I'm like, you know, this brother's gone from left to right. I've seen a lot of growth, from entrepreneurial to education. But I'm always been supportive of whatever you've been trying to do. And I was like, let me read this book and let me see if it shares anything that I do know or is it that I don't already know. Right. And as I started reading the book, I was like, this brother has really grown. And so I read it again today after a month ago. And I felt like I was reading about myself. And I was like, he hit some really good points in this book, you know, because whether it's talking about cologne, how you handle yourself, swag, I was like, this brother's really talking about me and just being confident. So, you know, really getting started. I'm proud of you.
Thank you. My second guest is nothing other than David Paige. David, welcome.
How you doing, Rod? Good to be here.
Good. David, what's your occupation?
Currently, I am doing premarital counseling.
Okay, cool. David, when you heard about the 7 S's, when I first told you about it, what came to mind?
Well, the conversations you and I have had, knowing you, the objective of the book, I felt it was a tool that you were creating, a tool that you felt was lacking in the atmosphere, one that in particular would speak to African-American men, some of the challenges that we have faced growing up or may currently be dealing with, and some thoughts you spoke from, obviously a very transparent perspective, some of your own challenges and struggles that you highlighted in the book. Yeah. So I felt it was a tool, something that someone could read, that they could personally identify with, and whatever area or chapter touched them specifically, they could kind of take some of the cues and some of the pointers, and that would maybe help them in areas where maybe they wasn't clear on why they struggle in the areas in the way that they do as it pertains to acquiring the type of woman that they want.
Cool. When you hear the definition of the word, I should say, gentleman, what comes to mind?
A man with class, a man who is well-rounded in all the critical areas. For example, in the area of chivalry, a man who has integrity and honor, a man who is respectful, a man who is who he presents himself to be or who he wants people to see him as. A gentleman, someone who is chivalrous, in the way in which they move with a lady, that comes across. And so those are just some of the quick ideas that come to my mind when you talk about the word gentleman.
All right, cool. Hey, Courtney, let me ask you this. So I came up with the 7 S's, but if you had to add an 8 S, what would you add?
You know, Rod, that's a great question, because as I was looking at all of 1 through 7, I really couldn't define an 8th one, to be honest with you, because when I started to think of an 8th, it kind of fell back and, through one of the 7. But as far as growth, because it talked a lot about, like David said earlier, where you've been growing, thinking about life, not knowing how to really approach someone. One part I think I probably would have emphasized a little bit more. I don't have a letter for it, but something of a younger gentleman on what they need to look at, as opposed to, me being older now, being through the trials and tribulations, seeing the good, seeing the bad. If it had a little bit more of a dose of, how a young man should be mature in a way where, of obstacles to overlook. I think that probably been a extra part in there. But outside of that, I really enjoyed it. I mean, I can't really think right offhand anything I would actually add, because to me it was like a stew. You put a little bit of green beans, you put a little pepper, you put a little bit of everything,
Right.
and you diced it up. And when you diced it up, it's a really good read. And I'm not just saying this because I'm cool with you, but it caught my attention, and I'd be more than welcome to share with a friend.
Thank you. Thank you. David, same question. If you had to add an S to the 7 S's, what would you add?
I'm glad you asked that question. I anticipated being asked that question, and likewise, I also reread the book today in preparation and just wanting to kind of delve into some of the chapters. Intentions, in particular, would be what I would title the chapter, because the book itself highlights the 7 S's to a man getting any woman. But getting a woman is one thing, but what are your intentions when you get her? Because everyone's intentions are not the same. And that determines the type of woman you may or may not pursue. That can also have a negative impact on women and some of the challenges and struggles that they have with men, with trust, in areas like that, because the intentions may be presented one way when in fact it's not genuine. So from my perspective, intentions, I think, is very key.
So if you had to go back, guys, and you had to think about, I'm going to say if your half-year-old self, so whatever age you are, you don't have to disclose that, but whatever half of age you are, if you had to go back and talk to yourself, especially about women, what's the one thing that you would tell yourself?
I go first if you don't mind, David.
Absolutely.
I would tell myself not to work so hard to impress a woman. Just stay on my grind, focus on myself, and everything else will come. Because sometimes, as being a youth, you see all these older guys and get that woman that you want at that time. You feel like you're out of her league because these guys are presenting cars and clothes and all these different things, and you feel like, I gotta have it, I gotta get that if I'm gonna get her attention. But half my age, I would focus on just keep grinding, because if you keep grinding, I think you'll shine, and they'll see you shining. And so if I could tell my old self, in which I did kind of do that, but while I was grinding, I was still trying to, go get that bad one or go get that particular sister that I really wanted. But I think I probably would have focused more on grinding. I probably could have, been higher up in the management at that particular time. And so that was something I would definitely tell my old self.
Okay. David, what would you tell your half-year-old self?
Great question. Humbly, I will say I've been married 30 years. So, in being transparent, I'm 57.
Okay.
I was 25 when my wife and I met. So I was a relatively young man at the time that we did meet. So personally, I had the perspective already in terms of what I wanted. I wasn't in a position. So I do agree with putting the focus on yourself, trying to acquire the things that are necessary just to have a level of stability when you enter a lady into your life in a genuine and real way. Never been about trying to overly impress a woman. I grew up in an environment and during a time where that was commonplace. And oftentimes you led with things and character fell to the wayside, and who you were and what you were really about fell to the wayside. And the way I circumvented that is I didn't have all of the things. And so I had to combat the young guys who presented things first, and I presented me first. And what I found out in private conversations is oftentimes the young ladies were attracted to the things, but they really liked me because of who I was.
Okay, cool. That's a great way. What do you guys think that every man, and it's no particular order, I'm just going to throw it out there. What do you think every young man at 25 years old should know by 25? Every man should know this.
Let's go, David. Go ahead.
What every young man should know, one is chivalry. I think that's an old standard that has it's no longer as prevalent as it once was at a time in our society. Opening the door, closing the door, pulling the chair out. Simple things, basic fundamental things go a long way. There's the saying that chivalry is dead, but in fact, chivalry is not dead. It's just not as highlighted and as emphasized as it once was. And so there were a time when we took pride in doing those things as young men and knowing how to do those things. And ladies who either was on the receiving end of it and or recognized that they appreciated it. Why? Because it separated us. It set us apart because we were doing something that was appreciated and valued, but had not been commonplace like it once had been. So I would say chivalry is a basic, fundamental act of kindness that young men need to learn.
Okay.
On my end, I think by 25, and I was this 25-year-old, it's a couple things, but, not to sit on a soapbox, I needed to learn how to do things with my hands because, as you and I have talked about, Rod, I'm very good at cutting the yard. For me, and not for most, I'm gonna say African-American men, they don't like to cut the yard. For me, it's relaxation. I can go and cut the yard and look like somebody's paid to do the yard. I know how to do the oil change. These are values that my uncle actually taught me how to do. So when we were in college, I used to take my car out in the middle of the parking lot, rotate my tires, change the oil, and other guys used to be like, "How you know how to do that?" And I was I was like, "Wow, y'all don't know how to do this?" I thought this was just something everybody know how to do. So if you ask that typical 25-year-old now, I'm going to go on a limb and say they probably don't know how to do that. Something David did mention when we were in school, what really caught my attention was not let my seed go all over the place. And when you say that, not trying to have kids, because what scared me, and I'll be very honest with you, was child support. I did not want to be on child support. I wanted to have kids. I wanted to have a multitude of kids. Yeah. But one of my close friends told me about child support, and I think if that really was brought home, not at just 25, really younger, we wouldn't have a lot of baby mamas. You'd have a lot of guys who would understand, hey, man, if I have this child and I don't take care of what I need to, I'm going to be living in an awkward position, in a box where I can't really enjoy my life. So these are things I can't say need to be brought back because that old saying, Papa was a Rolling Stone, I think we all know those individuals. I didn't want to be a part of that. So I think if that was really honed in and if they had a class on it, because it's easy. So many guys are so focused on, I want to be with this woman, I want to be with that woman. But they're not looking at, after that pleasure, what are the repercussions? Man, I got a child or two that I'm going to have to pay child support for X amount of years, and I can't enjoy my life. So that's what I think needs to really be brought home to 25 or younger.
You know what? I would, hearing you guys talk, I probably would think that guys at 25, one thing they should really learn how to do, one is to be disciplined. If you are disciplined, that it unlocks a lot of areas and it makes you actually hold your foot to the fire. Because I think when you're disciplined, you say what you're going to, mean what you say and say what you're going to do, and you actually walk in alignment. I know for me, I wasn't disciplined. I just lacked it. I would say one thing and do something else, and where I come from, that's called a lie. So I found myself actually not holding myself accountable. The second thing I probably would do is really believe in what I say. I didn't really have that level of belief in myself. So, you kind of fake it till you make it, if you will.
Right.
And the third thing I probably would do is really understand confidence. I didn't really understand what confidence. I understood what cockiness meant, but confidence is something that I really didn't hold on to. So that's where I'm at, where I would tell, my younger self, or I think any man before the age of 25, be disciplined. Hold yourself accountable, meaning do whatever you say you're going to do it, and then understand that you really have a belief in yourself. Right now, we're going to pause for the cause, and we're going to go and we're going to take a moment, and we'll be right back. Thank you guys for tuning in right now to the Gentleman's Playbook. Welcome back to the Gentleman's Playbook. Here in the Gentleman's Playbook, it's a mission, it's a mindset, it's a method that we take, and a lot of stereotypes that a lot of African Americans we're being misunderstood. But before I move forward, Courtney, you had a question.
I did. when you asked about the question, the S's that I didn't ask or bring up, and I was listening to David, thought about sex. You never added sex through it. I mean, sex sells. People talk about sex.
Yeah.
I don't care if you're young, old, or what age. My question for you, why didn't you add anything about sex related to your book?
Really good question. Well, one of the things I wanted to bring sensuality because a lot of men lack sensuality. And to romance a woman, both men and women both need to romance, but sex is a part of a relationship, but it's not the relationship. And if you're not connecting, if you miss those other 7 S's, the sex is not going to mean anything. It's going to be an act. And remember, sex is primitive. It takes no thinking. It's just an act. It's a movement of nothing that connects you. And one thing about women, they always want to be connected to something. That's why they say chemistry.
Yeah.
If we don't have chemistry, they don't have anything. Dave, you got a point?
I was just going to use the term intimacy.
Okay.
Oftentimes, sex is highlighted, and what makes the sex fulfilling is the intimacy that is the prelude to the physical act. And so I think that's a skill that many men lack and can gain a better understanding of, because both men and women like sex, but women put a premium on intimacy, and oftentimes men fail to hold intimacy with the same value.
Courtney?
Interesting what he says when he talks about intimacy, and when you were talking about it's just a movement. And I've been told from women in the past, if you have a dialogue and you're communicating effectively throughout the day, let's say you have a girlfriend or a lady friend, and you're talking throughout the day, she's already been mentally stimulated by the time you physically connect with her. So she's already, if it's okay to say, she's already had her mental orgasm. Mm-hmm. So you touching her is just like the icing on top. So that's where the connection comes, like what you were saying. And so I was surprised you didn't talk about sex in the book, because you're right. It's 2 individuals just connecting, but sometimes the connection can be like an explosion. And then, and I think all the guys in this room, sometimes the intimacy can be the total opposite. And that's where it's like a one-hit quitter. And then all of a sudden you're the bad guy and nobody, you're like, hey, he or she, well, he never called back because you didn't have a connection. You went in for one mission only. But I know we've all had those times where you had that mission, but all of a sudden you had that connection. You're like, I think I need to call her again. Is that a safe assumption,
Yeah.
Mr. Rudd?
Well, yeah, I think sometimes females miss it. I think they misinterpret. I ain't gonna say miss it. They misinterpret. If a guy talks about sex, they assume that he wants to have it, and that's not true. Because we've all talked about sex. I ain't trying to have sex with y'all, but I'm just saying there's just a dialogue conversation, because you're trying to match up, see if we even compatible,
right?
And are you compatible? You might not like this, or you may be into this, and I think more if we take the time out and people who have a conversation, you can be interested in someone, meaning I could be physically attracted to you, but not sexually attracted to you.
Right.
And I think that's the misconception. If you say, hey, someone is very attractive, that don't mean you want to have sex with them. That just means that, hey, you find them very attractive. And I think that's the misconception a lot of time, or people, men and women do it. They think that they want to have sex with everyone they meet, and that's not necessarily true. Guys, I really want to take this opportunity to thank you guys for being on the Gentleman's Playbook. Courtney, man, you are very intelligent brother. I've been knowing you for years, man. You're very
Thank you.
Smart, and I like the way that you think, and you don't think like me, which is great. And well, because I don't want any, yes. And David, you have more of a spiritual, but you have also a very clear way of thinking, and I like the way how you break things down, because you really take things and you break them down, and you just don't blur it out. You actually analyze and you emphasize your points. So I really want to say from the bottom of my heart, because you guys have traveled to here to the studio, to the Dream Network, as I call it.
Yeah.
But you guys traveled from far, and I really want to say I appreciate and thank you, and I have great admiration and respect for you guys. So thank you guys for being on here. Guys, thank you for tuning in to the Gentleman's Playbook. I'm your host, Rod Warner, and this is the playbook to the 7 S's of getting any woman.